evening, ladies and gentlemen.
It's me, Kurt Gronowski, publisher of Yankee T News, with more good stuff. So stick around. And I'll try to kind of go over it here. Yeah, it's Monday. It's October, is that 13th today? Oh yeah, the 13th. The year of our Lord, 2025, and we are coming to you once again from the Parkway Diner in beautiful downtown, Stamford, Connecticut. Okay, so first of all, please, I'm begging you, please, go to our website, so youtube.com/
Click subscribe, hit the notification bell.
Yes, all that stuff. Hit the notification bell. I'm trying to tell him. You interrupted me. Okay. And tell Tong Time, he who will be eaten last. And as for Tina Peters, it's the storm above. We'll get into it. So just quickly, I'm going to talk about the Gaza peace deal. Got a few comments. That's true. There's this strange event that was reported once and then disappeared with respect to Ukraine and Russia, which I want to try and get into, but there's other stuff too that's important. Slowly but surely, Venezuela's coming up in the rankings. Yes, it is. And then we have this strange thing where China declared economic war on the world. All right. So there have been some updates on that. I'll get into that good stuff. And I don't know how many of you remember, what was that company in Texas that got into a lot of trouble for accounting practices way back when? Name's right on the tip of my tongue. Maybe it'll occur to me. Anyway, we have a new financing scandal, a new bankruptcy scandal, but instead of being an Enron, that's it, the Enron scandal. See, I knew it was going to come back. That neuron's still working. So yes, First Brands is the name of the company, based in Cleveland, Ohio, and it seems like they got themselves some hot water. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Oh yes, Mom Donnie got chased away. Yes, ain't that a shame. Now, there's another subject. I'll just tell you that I'm very fascinated with this biological, what should I call it, organelle called mitochondria. I don't know if you know much about mitochondria, but they're normally referred to as the energy factory of the cell, of the cell and the body. Well, we're getting some other insights into this amazing little thing called mitochondria. I'll get to that. Tina Peters, I mean, I'll mention it again, but she's demanded her release again and still no luck. Boy, Governor Polis, you are one cold dude, all right? You are one cold dude. And we're going to talk about teff. Teff is a really cool little seed from Ethiopia. Anyway, so let's get into it. All right, the Gaza peace deal. We're all excited. It is a historic day. And I'll even say, when I think of my grandson, who's 6 years old, when he's 16, will they be teaching this in the history books? There's a good chance. However, I and others do have a certain degree of cynicism and skepticism, mostly about what comes next. What went into making this deal happen is quite remarkable. As we know, President Trump formed the most extensive coalition, probably second only to the United Nations itself, to get all these different countries to work together on different aspects of this, to actually bring these two sides to the table and to get this 20-point deal going. Now, it hasn't been completely settled, if you haven't found that out yet. So what we have here is the first phase. So things could fall apart, but here's what gets weird, ladies and gentlemen. We don't think about these things very much, right? And it's a function of the information we have in front of us. You have, that's right, Hamas ruling the roost in Gaza, causing all kinds of trouble. And we hear all kinds of stories about them. They're not the nicest people to have around. And then, what now? Have you ever heard of the Dogmush clan? The what? Yeah, the Dogmush clan. There's a clan. Apparently there are a bunch of these clans in Gaza. And we forget, for example, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the fundamental aspects of how society is organized in the Mideast. okay? They are organized around clans, and you might say tribes to some extent. Anybody outside of that clan, they're not trusted. Here's the problem. You've got people, not just in Gaza, but we'll say the Arab world, who hold grudges against each other that are, get ready, 500 years old. Who holds a 500-year-old grudge? We thought we had something with the Hatfields and the McCoys. They're pikers compared to these guys. So this is the issue, ladies and gentlemen. The notion that we have struck some kind of a deal, or I should say, they have struck some kind of a deal when mistrust and grudges are the cornerstone of Arab culture. I'm having a problem believing that this is going to last all that long. Just saying, okay? Now, also we should clarify this other thing. I had come across this piece. So the headline says, it should be pointed out that not a single female or child was among the surviving hostages. But according to somebody else, 4 women were released. So who's telling the truth? Okay? So just want to throw that in there. All right, so just back again. So you have this clan now fighting with Hamas. 27 people have already been killed in some internecine fighting within Gaza over this. Well, the Dogmush clan isn't the only one around. So there's going to be all kinds of stuff going on over a power struggle. Now, what is unclear is why would you have this power struggle when you've got a plan for a board to take over the administration of Gaza? There'll be a Gazan police force, but beyond that, I don't think the people of Gaza are really going to be having their own form of government, at least not for a while. So it's a little unclear, if I may say. Okay, next. All right, so here's the thing. Russia, Ukraine, Russia. I'm going to mention the mysterious part first. There was one, I don't know, did you see this, Eric? It was the first time the Russians and Ukrainians have met face-to-face in 3 years. You didn't hear about this?
I heard about it.
Okay. So what it was, and this is what you would, this is when they're getting serious, okay? What you had were lower level, not low level, but lower level officials from both countries sitting down in Turkey with Turkey mediating, and they were starting to hammer out the terms and conditions for a peace agreement. I only saw one article about this. I've searched and searched, can't find any other mention of it. You'd think this would be big news, but there it is. Okay, so let me start with the obvious. If anybody's been following this, you're probably quite aware of the fact that these drone attacks from Ukraine have appear to have done pretty serious damage to Russia's oil refinery capacity. You have reports of a 25% reduction in capacity. You have reports of gas lines that go miles and miles in Russia, and they're stepping up the pace of these attacks. And in the meantime, of course, the Russians don't want to miss a beat, so they've been trying to do the same thing to Ukraine. But for some reason, it just seems like Ukraine is having more impact, and that's very strange, but that's the story. All right, so let that be backdrop. Now let's move to the foreground, maybe near the foreground. We're not in the foreground yet. This was a surprise. So part one, we know that India and Russia have had a tight relationship with each other for a very long time. And one of the things that happened shortly after the Ukraine-Russia conflict began, Russia started selling oil to India at a 30% discount. Okay. Little did we know that the country of India has a huge refinery capacity, supposedly one of the largest in the world. Well, what does that mean? That means you send crude oil to India, they clean it up, and they send out all those nice little refined products, diesel fuel, kerosene fuel, jet fuel, you name it, bunker fuel. Okay. So India is getting it at a discount. But wait a second, there's more to the story. More. Oh my God. You ready for this one? There is a major refinery where either most or all of that Russian oil goes. You ready? The Indian refinery is Owned by Russia. We are a bunch of idiots. You ought to know that. Okay, so it took the Europeans, let me see now, I want to say at least 2 years, 2.5 years, to finally figure out that they were getting screwed by the Russians. All right? That's amazing. Okay, so the Russians were making money. They discounted it, but then they made the money on the other end when they refined the products and sold them back to Europe. Okay, now Europe says, you know what, maybe we should stop buying that so-called Indian oil, those Indian oil products. Now, this also explains another great mystery. You may or may not remember, I mentioned this 3 weeks ago. Saudi Arabia had come up with an offer to India saying, we will sell you our crude oil at a 50% discount. And supposedly the Indian government said no thanks. Well, now we know why, don't we? Ain't that something? Okay, so the point though is that even as we're having fun talking about this, now that it's out in the open, Europe is going to stop buying that oil. Remember, I believe India is the second largest importer of Russian oil. Don't know what Russia's going to do now. But I can tell you that within the confines of Russia, you're seeing more people speaking up. There was this video, I put the link up, for Russian bloggers speaking up. So this could just get, become bigger and bigger. And you keep wondering, are Putin's days numbered? Because if their production is down, gas lines are forming, people are beginning to complain. And all of this, of course, by the way, would lead to the suggestion that maybe, yes, some of the elements of Putin's government is saying, you know what, maybe that peace deal idea isn't so bad after all. Hence the meeting in Istanbul, but we only heard one example or case. Okay, so moving on. I need to remind you, I wrote this article last week. It's on my website. Go look at it. Go look at it.
YankeeT.news.
Yes, YankeeT.news. Thank you. And subscribe, by the way. Remember to subscribe. The trick, of course, is you have to have a Gmail account. Tell all your friends to have Gmail accounts. I want to see those numbers go up. We're so close. Okay. Pressuring Venezuela. I need to remind you that even though Venezuela can say that they're technically not a communist country, they are the hub for all communist movements in South America. Okay? They help Cuba. They help Nicaragua. Okay? They're best buds with Brazil. All right? And they got these guerrilla movements. I think they're in Peru, if they're still there. And I think there might be another one in Colombia, if I got it right, in Ecuador maybe. So they are the ones who support all that. If we take Maduro off the table, all those communist movements will collapse. And by the way, you have Russia, China, and Iran having, quote, good relations with the current Venezuelan illegal government. Take Maduro out and all that goes away too. So dealing with Venezuela is big. And I just want to mention also, of course, the neighboring country of Guyana, they're being pressure on because Venezuela wants to steal their oil. So I put up a link also. All right, so I just want to quickly add, like I said last week, this Machado babe who won the Nobel Peace Prize, and she called up Trump and said, you really deserved it. All right, let's give it a month. All right, I'm going to make the prediction that in a month we're going to see some significant political pressure coming up on Maduro, and she will have something to do with it. Stay tuned. All right. Meantime, this should not be a big deal, but it's interesting. I found this video. It's, quote, sizing up the Venezuelan military. You know, if we actually go to war with them, there'll be some kind of a fight, but I don't think they're going to get very far. All right, got that off the table. Now we get to talk about my favorite topic, China. And by the way, I just want to remind you, in case you forgot, where did I put it? Where did I put it? Come on. Oh, that's right. Okay, I've told you before, and I'm going to tell you again. How am I doing, Eric? Is that about right?
Decouple.
That's right. Decouple from China. And if you're confused by that statement, let's make it clear. Get out of China now. Now, I say this in recognition of the fact that you'd be surprised at the types of manufacturing technology that we depend upon for them. For example, there are certain kinds of what are called mid-range generators that are used for electrical transmission. Most of those are bought from China. We have very little manufacturing capability for those here in America. So that's just one example. All right? I don't like that. Meantime,
You did hear about the acquisition of retired power plant equipment from Europe that was brought up in lieu of building a new power plant here in the States.
yes.
In order to facilitate the growing demands of AI.
Wait, for China?
No, for the United States.
Oh, okay.
Superclusters. They dismantled an entire operation.
Yeah.
It was a defunct or retired
Oh,
operation. And
okay.
they moved all the equipment over here and reassembled
All right.
it.
When was this?
And within the last few months.
In the last few months.
Well, within the last year, actually.
Okay, so they're desperate for generating power. Ladies and gentlemen, I am about to digress because Eric brought something up that's very important. I would like to reference a gentleman named Cal Newport, who is a professor at MIT. Happened to watch a video by this gentleman. And there are two parts here. Stick around. Don't go home yet. Ooh, this is good. This is good. So, little known fact about AI, very important. Very important. Okay. It all started with ChatGPT 2.5. All right. So that was sort of an early large language model. And then what happened, part of it was that there was certain conventional thinking about what were the limits to building out these large language models. So somebody said, screw the rules, we're going to try and make a bigger model. And so they went, that was ChatGPT 3. So here's the thing. They had analyzed, all right, if anybody knows about the, what is that law for the, his name escapes me again, the physics guy at Intel. There's the law for increasing the transistor density over time, and it was Moore's law.
Moore's law, yeah.
Moore's law, okay. So, you know, if you know Moore's law, you know it's a chart that shows this linear increase at a certain angle over time of which we call a computer capability in terms of transistor density. And that we're reaching the limit, but has more or less stayed true. And by the way, the costs as you go up to each level of transistor density increases exponentially. So there's like a built-in limit. So guess what? With large language models, there is a similar law, a similar scaling law in effect. So it's based upon certain metrics for certain capabilities. So let's just say like this, okay? So ChatGPT 2.5, right. 3, the capabilities increased as expected, still on the curve. ChatGPT 4, okay, as predicted. ChatGPT, is there a 4.5 or is it 5?
They're at about 5 now.
Yes, okay, but here's the problem. Here's the problem. They found that when they tried to go to 5, performance fell off. Performance fell off. Can I just state the obvious for you? Forget universal general intelligence. Forget the AGI stuff. We're not there. That's the message in case you haven't figured it out yet. You can hear Sam Altman and all these other guys carrying on. Nope, sorry, ain't happening. Okay, so what's happening? If you listen to them, they're talking about going to more specialized applications, things where we have certain kinds of expert capabilities. And I find this is an interesting echo of what was going on with AI in the late 80s and early 90s. there was a subject called knowledge engineering. I don't know if anybody remember that, but at the time they realized, well, you know, at that level of computer capability, they were still hitting a wall in terms of what they could expect, quote, AI to do. And that's a whole other, right. I'm not going to lose track of that. It bugs me enough I have to talk about it. Okay, but the point is that knowledge engineering was a natural response to having hit the wall back then. So here we are again, 40 years later, same problem and the same response. I guess we're going to have to specialize. All right, to which I still hold out. I mean, I did email this MIT professor. I need somebody to tell me if I'm out of my mind. The problem is this, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let's get over the lie. The lie, stop the lying. AI is really neural networks or a combination, but you would depend heavily on these. AI, logic programming, neural networks, numerical computation. They are not the same. Not the same, all right? But people insist on confusing numerical computation with AI. It's not the same, okay? So when you get all bent out of shape over these large language models, remember what underlies it is numerical computation. And numerical computation has its limits. As one person said, I would not like to balance my checkbook using these systems of numerical computation called neural networks. There have been remarkable demonstrations of capabilities, but they still have inbuilt limitations that cause me to say, all right, this was predicated on a very primitive understanding about how neurons work, okay, going back to the 1940s and two guys named McCulloch and Pitts. All they had was this big-ass squid laying on the laboratory bench table, and they're poking at it, and they're trying to measure the electrical response of this big-ass axon in the squid, and it keeps going boing, boing, boing. And that was how they understood neural impulse from a squid axon, all right? That became the model that I learned in school. Were you ever subjected to the action potential, Eric? Does it sound familiar at all? Maybe they might have taught that. You know, you stimulate the neuron and it spikes, and the impulse moves forward. No? Okay. Anyway, we've since learned that neurons work in a whole bunch of different ways, and we haven't even talked about temporal processing, okay? 4 minutes. Okay, I got it. So the long and the short of it is, I mean, now that I've digressed, I apologize. I remain a skeptic about what you can expect from AI. Yes, will it specialize? Probably yes, okay? But the idea of some kind of average general intelligence, until such time as we are able to integrate other concepts of neural functioning, we might be doing it in a backdoor way with neural networks, sort of. But the models they use are still based upon the primitive concept of an action potential. So I don't understand. Anyway, get out of China now, all right? Just want to remind you. All right, where was I? Tef. Let me make sure I got everything. Mondami, he got chased out of town, so to speak. You know, people got tired of his anti-Semitic comments. I'm glad they figured it out. Okay, DOD is going to buy up a lot of rare earth minerals because they are worried. Okay, this comes back to the point we want to make. Remember last week, China said we are issuing export controls for every single cotton-picking country in the world, and then Trump came back and said, oh, you want to do that? Great. Then I'm going to impose a 100% tariff on everything China makes. So since then, there's been some backroom discussions. Maybe you guys are a little hasty. Maybe we need to calm down and just get together here and rethink this. But we'll see. November 1st, right, is when this is all supposed to happen. And today's the 13th. So there's time. There's time to work it out, okay? Now, where is it? Where is it? Okay, Holland. All right, kind of related to this. The Dutch government seized control of a Chinese-owned semiconductor manufacturer in Holland named, where did they go? I want the name. Must be here somewhere. Well, just to make the point, though, these guys It's been said before, you can say, oh, gee, China's making these things they're using in the automotive industry and all these medical applications and things. That may be true, but I want to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, it's been said before that those chips are what we'll call mid-scale chips. They're not what you call high-powered chips. They're nothing like NVIDIA chips. Anyway, Nexperia was seized by the Dutch government, okay? And yeah, I don't know where it goes from here, but I mean, it's just, you have these little, sometimes it's just these little things. That's all it takes to start to trigger other events. So I just wanted to let you know. Okay. All right, the buying spree. Oh, this is a concern. This is a serious concern. So there's another piece about how China is getting much better at cyber hacking. They're developing. All right, well, here, let's put it this way. Part one, okay? Part one, all right? I was listening to this guy who worked for the Israeli cyber defense forces, and he made the point that our concern is not so much having defenses against being hacked, it's how long it takes us to discover it. And he said in case of Israel and what they have to deal with, the average period of time from when they're penetrated to the time they discover it, 6 months. We should all be shocked, okay? 6 months. That's 6 months of free reign inside their system where the Chinese are having a good old time. Well, now here's another one. It's called Brickstorm. It's part of the Chinese Advanced Persistent Threat. And you're going to love this. So now the problem is, this article, the link is up. They're harder to detect. They are so much harder to detect now, it's turning out that it's taking them over a year to find these invasions into their network. Over a year. So, zero-day vulnerabilities targeting network appliances. Do you know what zero-day vulnerability is? No? Not sure? Okay. Yeah, so this is pretty bad. This is pretty bad, and I don't have an answer to this. I wish I did. Okay, so there's that. TEF. All right. There are alternative food sources you can think of. One of them that's used a lot is called TEF, T-F-F. Ever heard of TEF? Yes, so it's actually originally grown in Ethiopia, and I think some farmers are picking up on it here. Even though it's a very fine grain, you can make a flour out of it. They use it in Ethiopia to make a bread, a fermented bread. The flour still ends up being kind of coarse, which is curious, even though the grain is very small. But teff is very healthy. It is gluten-free, has a lot of nutrients in it, so it is definitely something that you should consider having. Teff, remember teff. Okay. Now, okay, it's called urolithin A. The link is up for this too. But urolithin A, quote, heals brain mitochondria. You know, it turns out that what happens is the outer covering of mitochondria can become thicker and tougher, and so their ability to generate energy becomes weaker, and it reduces brain function as well as the rest of your body, just saying. Yeah, okay, so let me just go through these other things here quickly. I just got 4 quick ones. 1, Mike Davis of the Article 3 Project has been on Steve Bannon a lot, wants to remind us that the Russia hoax is just the tip of the iceberg for a scandal that will be one of the greatest scandals in American history. We're just waiting for it to come to light. And if you haven't learned already, so here's Letitia James, who's the Attorney General for the state of New York, and she, the poor girl, has gotten into herself a little bit of hot water, having engaged in a serial pattern of mortgage fraud. Well, 2 problems. She has made fraudulent representations to banks, insurance companies, the IRS, and the relevant government agencies of the states of New York, Virginia, and Georgia for at least 24 years. So what do you think? Is Letitia going to go to jail? I'm pretty damn sure Letitia is going to be going to jail. You, babe, I don't know what you were thinking. Oh, I know, you didn't intend it. It was a mistake. Yeah, we'll see about that. The same mistake you made for over 24 years. All right, now, I'm going to do this in reverse order. Clint Eastwood put up a post raising the following question. Will Obama be the biggest fraud? I wish to echo that sentiment and remind you, dear audience, here is the problem. Anybody who's tried to study the life history of Barack Obama will discover quickly that virtually every kind of document that would tell you anything about his past is sealed. It is not available to the public, okay? And the one that has been proven fraudulent. That would be the birth certificate. So without the birth certificate, who is this person called Barack Obama? A lot of people have played into the scam against the American public, and it's going to be quite the scandal. Anyway, the last thing I want to bring up...
You've had a little bit of experience with that, too.
Yeah, we won't get into that. Okay, the last thing, very strange, I just came across is female gooners. Has anybody ever heard of female gooners? Well, I'm not going to get into the particulars. Maybe I'll save that for later. If you looked up Gooners, female gooners, you'll find some videos that will make it abundantly clear. Okay, in the early days of feminism, men were accused of sexually objectifying women. That is, they just looked at them as sex objects, and that's it. Okay? Well, guess what? Now we get to have a discussion about the ways in which women objectify sex with men, including not with men. So I'm not going to fill in the details. I'm going to let you find out the hard way. But I think it is fair to say that there's... Sorry?
Sounds like
We're running low on battery, and we got to...
Yeah, okay, so the only point I want to make is if you look up female gooners, you're going to find that there's a strata of women who clearly have problems unique to women. All right, and I'll leave it at that. And on that happy note, I will see you next week.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Visit our website, yankeet.news.
Yeah, all right, we're looking for it. Okay. How to